So very good morning friends. Once again I am there before you. My last video was on feminist criticism and this video is going to focus upon psychoanalytic feminism. So it is further one advanced topic which needs special discussion. That is why I am here before you. So the psychoanalytic criticism, as you can see, that this word psychoanalytic criticism has been formed by two words. One is psychoanalysis and another word is feminism. As you know that psychoanalysis came into existence with the emergence of Sigmund Freud as a benchmark in the field after 1890. And as you know that this psychoanalysis delves into a world which was very much unexplored before 1890. Psychoanalysis develops a theory of the unconscious, that we are living in three platforms: conscious, subconscious and unconscious. Unconscious is the 9/10 submerged part of our mind. So this Sigmund Freud had the concept that psychoanalysis develops a theory of the unconscious that links sexuality with our subjectivity. Subjectivity means when we make ourselves the subject with our individuality, we can also say that psychoanalysis develops a theory of the unconscious mind that links sexuality and subjectivity unavoidably together. So we are not apart. Sexuality and our individuality are joined together. We are not separate. Clear? Now, feminism, as you know, in my last video also, I have discussed that feminism or any ism, wherever there is a suffix like ism, like Gandhiism or anything, that becomes an ideology. So feminism is an ideology that believes in the equality of rights for women, and it came into existence especially after 1960. So there is a gap between 1990 and 1960s. Even then there is a change, and now we are reading it together in 2020. So the concept has, and before that also, like in the early first half of the 20th century, this term psychoanalytic feminism had been much in coin, much in uses. Now, first wave feminism generally focused on the equality of rights and voting rights, like property rights for women. But second wave feminism is known as, they are much beyond that. And then now they talk about their reproductive rights, their motherhood, their workplace, their living relationships rights, and there are many such rights. Now, what I see that what is the objective of studying psychoanalytic feminism? Whereas the psychoanalysis this theory delves into the field of our unconsciousness, psychoanalytic feminism is the theory of our oppression. We start studying this, that how the women have been oppressed. So if the psychoanalysis is the theory of our unconscious mind or unconsciousness, this psychoanalytic feminism is a theory of oppression. And then, which asserts that men have an inherent psychological need to oppress women. We are bound to oppress women. What is that psychological need? That without suppressing women we cannot live. That kind of specialist study we have to go through. Then, what is the root of men's compulsion to dominate women and women's compulsion to minimal resistance to oppression? See, men are bound to oppress women, and what is that inside women? What is that compulsion of women to minimal resistance to oppression? They do not resist. They live with that oppression very happily. So what is that compulsion? What is that women's compulsion? That is, we have to study that human psyche. And this is also another objective, that this branch of feminism seeks to gain insight into how our psyche develops in order to better understand the total scenario and change the woman's oppression. How we can, once we know that if the main psychology is to oppress women, and we have also come to know that there is a women's compulsion for the least resistance against those oppression, we have to come for understand and change the scenario of oppression. Now, the pattern of oppression is also integrated into society, thus creating and sustaining patriarchy. Since men oppresses and suppresses women, so this is going to create a patriarchal world where the father is in the center of the society. Father is in the center of the family. Family is the unit of society. So we have to see how father or the parent patriarchy grows, and through the application of psychoanalytic techniques to studying differences between women and men, as well as the ways in which gender is constructed. Then we'll have to study how this gender is constructed socially. And it is possible to reorganize socialization patterns at the early stages of human life. So how, once we understood the problem, then we start to think how the socialization can be promoted further on the basis of the equilibrium where the men and women will be standing on the same platform. Now, what is the aim? Undoubtedly, this is a societal change. We have to bring change in the society because men and women are the part of society and they are the integral part. So, societal change or a cure, because this inequality is not less than a disease. Through this study of psychoanalytic criticism, we want, our aim is to cure this problem, and can be developed through the discovering the sources of domination in men's psyche and subordinate in women's, which largely resides unrecognized in individual unconsciousness. We suppress, but we do not recognize it. We oppress women, and oppressed are also feeling good in being oppressed, but they do not recognize it because it lives inside us in individuals' unconsciousness. We never notice it, but by studying this for the first time, we become so conscious that we start to do something concrete to wipe off this disease, almost this kind of disease, which is of inequality, and without acknowledging it, we delve into it. Now, what is the historical background? It all began with Kate Millett's book Sexual Politics, which was written in 1969, and that mainly deals with theory of patriarchy and the sexual politics whereby men establish their power and maintain control. Kate Millett says that this is how, by establishing a patriarchal society, men governs and they keep the things in their control, and in which she condemns Sigmund Freud as a prime source of the patriarchal attitude against which feminists must fight. So Kate Millett discovered a lot of things against Sigmund Freud, and she charged him for being patriarchal, because his theories, as he propounded, are mainly male-dominated theories or the patriarchal theories in general, as per the concept of Kate Millett is there. Now, being a feminist of second wave, Millett proclaimed, "Yes, I said yes, I am a lesbian." And she added, "It was the last strength I had." So this is what she writes. So you can easily see that Kate Millett does not believe in a family system. She takes family as an institution which always suppresses women and their rights. And that is why she is also not very happy in becoming a mother, because she feels, I'll like to discuss it later on. You can see that in Millett's neo-Marxist conception, or you can say, there is a Firestone's is another critic, that family was in its essence a coercive, a hierarchical, and a means of reproducing the patriarchy. According to Kate Millett, this family is nothing but a means of reproducing the patriarchy. And Millett and Firestone weren't very pro-child either. Having babies and taking care of them reduced women and to the cultural level of animal life, in which there is production and rearing only, as animals do. They find no difference. And that is why she was against it. And you see that she also advocated being a lesbian. She was very happy. So, but for Millett, now I would like to discuss in another slide Mitchell. Mitchell is another big name in psychoanalytic feminism, which are discussed. But this is a question before I would like to pose, that why Freud was labeled as patriarchal. So entire psychoanalytic criticism can be divided, keeping the Sigmund Freud into the center. Sigmund Freud is undoubtedly the cynosure of this total discussion. And the entire galaxy of psychoanalytic critics, they form lobbies, and they can be divided into two parts. One lobby which supports Freud, one lobby which stands against Sigmund Freud. And that is why you can see there is a slide before you where I discuss there is a pro-Freudian or patriarchal systems have been supported by these critics, and in my right side there is a gamut of critics who are anti-Freudian and they did not agree what Freud said. Who were there? In the pro-Freudian side, we see the big name is Juliette Mitchell, and she wrote a book, Psychoanalysis and Feminism, in 1974. And then another book written by her was in 1971, Women, the Longest Revolutions Women State. And then there is Jacqueline Rose, who also supported it in the school of Sigmund Freud. And she wrote a book, The Haunting of Sylvia Plath. Then there is Suzanne Gilbert. Then there is Zen Gallop, who wrote a book, Feminism and Psychoanalysis, in 1982. And she writes that, Jen Gallop writes that the phallus is not a physical, biological object, but a symbol of power which goes with it. So I will also discuss it later on. Now, anti-Freudian, there is another school who talks against Sigmund Freud, and this is Kate Millett. She is a leader, we can say. She wrote the book Sexual Politics, I had discussed in the previous slide. Then there is Jessica Benjamin, and she wrote a book, A Desire of One's Own, in 1986. Then there is Jacques Lacan. Jacques Lacan was of course Freudian, and he was in the middle. I just wrote in that side, but I do not consider him against Sigmund Freud, but he had a concept of his own. And there is then Karen Horney, and then there is Helen Sizu. Her book is Laugh of Medusa, and there is another book, Sotties, who she wrote in about 1975. Production is there. So friends, I can tell you that if we want to study psychoanalytic criticism, Sigmund Freud is a watermark. One is against him, one is for him. So entire discussions revolves around Sigmund Freud. Now, the next slide you can see that we have to understand that why was Sigmund Freud's psychoanalytical school of thought labeled as patriarchal? What did he say that created a ripples and made a talk of discussion? So let us see that. The very seed concept given by Sigmund Freud is known as Oedipus Complex, which is based upon a story of Oedipus where she unknowingly went for the marriage with his own mother. But what exactly is this? This is Oedipus Complex is the desire of the opposite sex parent. A son, or if the son is there, he will desire for a mother. If the daughter is there, she will desire for her father. And there is a jealousy and anger toward his or her same-sex parent. This is the basic concept propounded by Sigmund Freud, that there will be jealousy and anger towards his or her same-sex parent. And during psychosexual stages of development, that is from the age of 2 years to 5 years, a boy begins to identify himself with the same-sex parent, whereas the girls take much longer time to associate herself with her mother. So here is the complexity. Now, once you understood what is Oedipus Complex, we can see that Sigmund Freud and Karen Horney, they are one-to-one and they are neck-to-neck stating their own theories. Why is Sigmund Freud labeled as patriarchal? Let us see. The concept that he designed is in nutshell known as penis envy. This is a key word, penis envy. What is this? According to Sigmund Freud, women were simply men without penis. This is what Sigmund Freud wrote, that women are just nothing, but they are men without penis. And then they experience an envy of the male, which accounted for much of female behavior. And third, the only way they could overcome their penis envy was to suggest they wanted a male child in their efforts to gain penis. This is what Sigmund Freud wrote, that every woman tries to conceive a baby boy so that the boy will be compensation for the penis that she does not have. Now, again, this Karen Horney said that there is a woman envy among men, because Horney introduced the idea that men were affected by their inability to bear children, calling it womb envy. She said that, hey, come on, you men we are not penis envy. You men are rather women are womb envy, because you cannot conceive a child. We have that power. Nature has given that power to us. And then she said men felt envious of biological function of female sex. That is like breastfeeding, we cannot feed, we can feed. We can conceive a child, and calling it male striving for achievements as overcompensation. And that is why she said, see, you are powerless before us. That is why in materialistic world you try to achieve something as compensation, because you feel lower than us in status. So this is one big bet which is going there in psychoanalytic criticism. This penis envy and womb envy. Penis envy given by Sigmund Freud, and womb envy is concept given by Karen Horney. Now, Sigmund Freud also believed, why was he labeled as patriarchal? He also believed that women oppose change. They oppose change, they do not want to change faster, and they receive passively and add nothing of their own. Such a one-sided remark. And then women's lives were dominated by sexual reproduction of function. That is why Sigmund Freud believed that was taken to be a patriarchal in his concept. Now, in the next slide we will discuss a very big name, and around her only I am going to take this lecture. The basis of this lecture is Sigmund Freud as well as Juliette Mitchell's two books. One is Psychoanalysis and Feminism, that came into 1974, and Women, the Longest Revolutions, Women's State, that is 1971. In that she writes that this feminism is much different from what socialism is, and she tries to differentiate between the concept of radical feminism and abstract socialist, because at that time these two concepts were coming hand in hand. So as per the radical feminism, men are the oppressors. Radical feminist says that men are the oppressors, whereas the abstract socialist says that men are not the oppressor, it is the system which oppresses. Now the second, all societies have been male supremacist. All societies are male supremacist. Whereas abstract socialist says that no, male are not supremacist, or they do not suppress, rather capitalism oppresses women. Because why this is the concept is there, I'll discuss it later on. Capitalism oppresses women, it's not the men who oppresses women. Now, it starts with the radical feminism says that it starts with the psychological power struggle, which when men win, whereas abstract socialists say that it starts with private property. Now, radical feminism says what we want is all women to unite against men and male-dominated society. Feminists say that we want to unite all women against the male-dominated society. Whereas the abstract socialists say that it is most necessary to convince men of importance of our struggle. They say that, we do not have to win men, rather we have to make them convinced about our positions. And then they are oppressed by their roles too. So, last radical feminism says that we want to liberate women from male oppression. They want absolute freedom or liberation from male society or the male domains or the male oppression. Whereas the abstract socialists say that all people are alienated under capitalism. This is not the case of women only, but under the influence of capitalism, every people is alienated. And we want to liberate everybody to become whole people. So this is where Mitchell discusses the things. Now, according to Mitchell, there are 4 reasons for continuous oppression of women. What are those 4 reasons under the societal, socialist structure of society? What are the 1, 2, 3, 4? 4 reasons which is the main causes, which are the main causes for the women's oppression. Let us study with the lens of Mitchell's. First one is the production. And Mitchell says that anatomically smaller and weaker physically, women's physiology and her psychological metabolism appear to render her less useful member of a workforce by stamina-wise. In nutshell, stamina-wise, she works less than men. She is weaker. Even if you go, as in second sex, it is mentioned by Sigmund Freud that if you count the hemoglobin rate of female, it will be less than men. Nature has given like that. Of course, there is a story behind Amazon. Amazon means A means no, Amazon means breast. Women without breast, they were the warrior tribes. They were cutting off one side of their breast, the right side, to fix the bow and arrows in the right shape, and they can hunt and they can fight against any kind of war. So those are the exceptions, but nature has given that kind of physicality where the women is less in might. So this is one production when there is one problem. So society, when it comes into a production of consumer products, their women contribute less than men. Like once women was accorded the manual task like involved maintenance, while men undertook conquest and creation. So men were going in the field to battle in the battlefield to win the wars, and women were supposed to take care of the home household things. Now second one is the reproduction. This is the second reason why the women are oppressed by men and the society naturally becomes patriarchal. What is that reproduction? Maternity necessity is withdrawal from works. Even today, women are given, much of the second wave and third wave feminism is going on. Then women are given maternity leave for 9 months. But this is where, once again, so that conceiving a child forces a woman for the maternity necessities. And maternity is often caricature of this. The biological product, the child, is treated as if it were a solid product. Now the reproduction is the second. Third is the sexuality. Because in a very heart of Judeo-Christian sex ethic, that man and women, it says that man and women shall remain virginal until marriage, and they shall be completely faithful after marriage. So all the taboo of sexuality is more given to women part. As you remember, till Victorian age, the women writers were not allowed to write any novel where the heroine or the major character goes for elopement, and that elopement does not turn into marriage. It was boycotted, socially boycotted. It was not accepted. Even Jane Austen in Pride and Prejudice, there is a character who goes for the elopement, but that had to be materialized into marriage. So this is a kind of society where all expression of sexuality, especially by women, is not taken in good color, in a good sense. They are not accepted in that norm. So that socialization of children. This is the fourth reason why women are oppressed. That women's biological destiny as mother becomes a cultural vocation in her role as socializer of children, because naturally, since she is a mother, all kind of socialization responsibilities of her child remains on her weak shoulder or a strong shoulder, whatever you say. But this is where she is destined to become a mother, and she is destined for this socialization of children. That is why there are the four basic reasons: production, reproduction, sexuality, and socialization of children. These are the four reasons, as Mitchell wrote. So Mitchell was the first who sought to combine critique of socialist thought, what I discussed before is all socialist thought, and psychoanalysis together for feminist theory, one of the earliest attempts to make this topic interdisciplinary, where socialism, where the socialist theories, where the psychoanalytical theories, where the feminist theories are clubbing together. So this has become interdisciplinary. Now, then Mitchell concludes that penis envy need not be taken as simply concerning the male physical organ itself, but as concerning that organ as an emblem of social power and the advantages that go with it. So, according to Mitchell, we should not go for the penis envy, rather we should take it as a symbol of, as an emblem of social power and the advantages that go with it. So she supports somehow to the theories propounded by Sigmund Freud, because he says that we are handicapped. We are destined to be like that, because nature has made us like that. These are all we have not created. This has been created by the nature itself. So this is how she tries to compensate Freud's theories. Now, she defended Freud and responded to accusations labeled by, especially by Kate Millett, and she writes her arguments. Number one, Mitchell here influenced by Lacanian thought and argues that to abandon Freud would be detrimental to the studies of psychoanalytic feminism, detrimental to the feminist cause, especially since Freud's work was a critique and analysis of patriarchal society. So if we want to do something original in the field of psychoanalytical theory, we do not have to become an ostrich. Rather, we have to study Sigmund Freud more in detail. This is our first argument. Now, where the second argument is that the unconscious is the domain of the reproduction of culture and ideology. As Sigmund Freud says, that this unconscious is the theory is related with our sex and our individuality. Mitchell takes his statement that this unconscious is not only a place of sex and our individuality or our sexuality, rather this unconscious is the domain of the reproduction of culture and ideology. In our unconscious mind, the total entire culture, the total entire ideology resides there, and we are nothing but the stories of those feedbacks, those stuff which is there in our, restored in our unconscious mind. And then, in Mitchell's words, women's identities are determined by their cultural utilization as exchange objects. They say that women are generally exchanged in marriages. From one place to go to another place. What is happening in that way? That cultural utilization is happening. Women are like an object which transfers the cultures, and this exchange objects, like exchange objects, they are being exchanged. So this is where women's identities are determined by their cultural utilization. Now, argument number 3, she says that since the female is supposed to be anxious over her lack, see that lack is in inverted comma because penis envy says that women is nothing but that lacks in that penis is lacking. So since the female is supposed to be anxious over her lack of the male organ, and the male is anxious about losing it through castration, because this is also a fear among men that they can lose it by castration. Mitchell argues that the castration is only symbolic, never realized. So she argues and she convinces women that you should not never be very much overconscious about this, because this castration is symbolic. It is not going to happen truly. So that is just a concept where you have to take it in that way. And you don't have to become much conscious about lack. Now, argument number 4, and she defended fact that gender is thus a cultural construct. The one created as a fantasy in children. When children is there, a fantasy is given to them that there is, that unpleasant genital difference. There is no genital differences. We say in that. We convince, to the growing up kids that it's like a fantasy in children to explain unpleasant discoveries of genital differences, and it rejects the sexual distinction by presupposing and fictionalizing that sexes were once one. We assume and we just fictionalize it that our sexes were once one. So we don't have to go for that, rather we have to make them understand that this gender is nothing but a social construct or a cultural construct. Now, argument number 5, that Juliette Mitchell says that feminism is itself the result of late capitalism, where there is a difference between individual and there is a split between the private and the public. So, and the idealization of male-centered family life is bound to be there. So, if in a materialistic or in a capitalistic society, since the society has to be male-dominated, it has to be male-centered, it has to go into the production, it has to go into the reproduction. So that we cannot deny that we cannot do away with this, and we should go abide by this Freudian thought, which says that society is basically patriarchal. Now, there is another Suzanne Gilbert. She writes that there is a use the idea of female being a matter of social castration. And she feels, Suzanne Gilbert also discusses Wuthering Heights in detail, and I'll discuss it later on. What does social castration mean? Because female thinks that they are socially castrated, they are socially uprooted, they are socially unreproductive, and they are the other, they are not a part of the society. So that is why Suzanne Gilbert writes that the idea of female being a matter of social castration. And then there is Zen Gallop, who writes that feminism and psychoanalysis, this book she wrote, and that Zen Gallop writes that the phallus is not a physical, biological object, but a symbol of power which goes with it. So they are also not taking penis as a penis, but they are taking as a phallus organ, and this phallus is going to become a symbol of power in a society, which goes with the power with it. So this is the now Jacques Lacan says that it shows men too as powerless. Jacques Lacan says that men are also powerless. Women are powerless, men are also powerless. And since the fullness of significance is not attainable, we cannot become full, we cannot become complete, we cannot become whole alone, neither by men nor by women. And Lacan says that this, by his way of writing, which was very abstruse, obscure or puzzling, and the paralogical, the language was beyond logics, and seems to embody the feminine for semiotic aspect, the structural aspect of language, rather than masculine or symbolic aspect. He said that women are the skeletons of language. The skeletons are semiotic, they are not symbolic. Symbolic is a male. So this is what his contention. Now the last critic I would like to discuss is French feminist Hélène Cixous. And the Cixous proposes a utopian place where a primeval female space which is free of symbolic order. She says that there is a world which is free of any symbols, there is no male-dominated symbols, there is no sex roles, there is no motherness, and law of father is not governing there. She is going to take us into that world, and in which the self is linked with what Cixous calls the voice of the mother. She takes us into that utopian world. And she believes that this place with its voice is the source of the feminine writing. There is a space that is called the voice of the mother. From there, it is the source of the feminine writing, where there is no overlapping of male's language. There is no overlapping of any concept which is propounded by the male society, where there is no concept borrowed. Rather, everything comes from within. That source is known as the mother space, and the voice of the mother. And Cixous contends to gain access to it is find a source of immeasurable feminine powers, and she writes that women must write herself. Women should write herself. She does not write anyone else. Women must write herself, and she once again writes, women must write women. With all emphasis said, women must write women. Women must not write men. Women must not copy other things, but women must write women. This is what she talks about. And then there is, in a nutshell, I'd like to take the help of Ellen Showalter. And Ellen Showalter makes it very clear that if you talk feminist criticism in terms of English, then English feminist criticism is essentially Marxist, and this criticism school of thought stress oppression. This study will discuss much upon oppression. There are three lenses to study. If you study with the lens of American feminist criticism, then you are essentially textual and you will stress upon expression. And then if that's this class, the French feminist criticism with that lens, if you study the total school of thought, then you are essentially psychoanalytic and you will stress repression. So these are the three distinctive classes and the lenses through which we study psychoanalytic feminism. Now, this is what a case study. What is nutshell? Suppose I have come to know about feminism and psychoanalytic feminism. Let us read and reread as a feminist critic the novel written by Emily Bronte, Wuthering Heights. There you see that what as Gilbert and Gilbert is trying to, this is called Gilbert and Gilbert's model. So what Catherine in that novel, or this girl, must learn is that she does not know her own name. Catherine in Wuthering Heights does not know her name, and that is why she, when asked what is the problem, she says, problem, I am Heathcliff. I am Heathcliff. She does not know her identity with minus Heathcliff. She is nothing. She is not even an iota of dust without Heathcliff. So this is what Catherine Nichol must learn, that she does not know her own name, and thereof they cannot know either who she is or whom she is destined to be. Now the next one, this process of denial involved, they describe as social castration. This process of denial, Catherine is not accepting her own existence. This is nothing but the social castration that we talked about earlier. Now, marrying Linton would give her a status. In a male-dominated society, women has no status. Even the titles or even the Mrs. Bharat, all the titles they adopt from their husbands. They do not have their own existence. They don't have, even Catherine tries to marry Edgar Linton only because she would have some reputation in society, and on that basis she rejected Heathcliff despite she was loving him very much. Now, effectively, Catherine has to leave behind all her instinctive preferences signified by Heights. In Wuthering Heights, where she was living, was the instinctive preferences. She was in her original mode. She was in her own being. But take on to an alien attitude and signified by Thrush Grange. When she got married and she went to Thrush Grange to live, this is an alien attitude she adopted, and every woman on earth are having two rebirths, They said that कि बच्चियां तो 2 बार जन्म लेती हैं, एक बार जन्म लेती हैं और एक बार जब शादी होता है. So every woman has a height of her, like wuthering heights of her true being and thus cross grained of her castrated personality. When a woman gets married and comes to her in-laws' house, she is having a personality which we can call, in the terms of psychoanalytic criticism, as castrated personality. So lives her instinctive dull behavior. And then the Grange is a home of concealment and doubleness. There in in-laws' house, they conceal many things and they go for the doubleness in their personality. And Catherine learns to adopt a double character, exactly intending to deceive anyone. She hides her true feelings for Heathcliff, and Catherine suppresses her own impulses and insight, and must girdle her own energies with the iron strings of reason. And Catherine has learned correctly that if it is degrading to be a woman, she learned that if it is degrading to be a woman, it is even more degrading to be like a woman, because she feels that her husband is like a woman, And the marriage unavoidably locks her into a social system which denies her autonomy. So is Heathcliff's return, the return of the repressed. When Heathcliff in the second part came to her, it is nothing but the return of the repressed. What was repressed in her, Heathcliff was the personification of that after his vengeance return. So this is where Catherine, as the return, Sigmund Freud would like to say, that represents the return of her true self's desires without the rebirth of her former powers. And Catherine fails to recognize her own face in the mirror, self-starvation. This is what happens to most of the women, that they forget their own face. What is the original face? There are so many faces they have to wear. T.S. Eliot writes in one poem that there will be time to prepare a face to meet the faces that we meet. A woman has to prepare a face every time to meet the faces that they meet. And madness and death, a complex of psychoneurotic symptoms, which is there in Catherine. That psychoneurotic symptoms is easily found is all spread in our society. That is almost associated with female feeling of powerlessness and rage. So here, friends, thank you very much. Here ends the psychological concept, and this is how this lecture is going to help you not only to understand what exactly psychoanalytic criticism is, rather after understanding it, you will start to read the text from the feminist lens. Thank you very much.